Well, I hope we're started. Happy the day after Christmas, everyone. Uh, Everybody knows that on the winter solstice uh, it's the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year. Okay, because of the obliquity of the Earth's axis. Okay, we we in the northern hemisphere anyway experience what appears to be the shortest day of the year. And and actually, sunlight wise, it actually is. And on the southern hemisphere, it's the longest day of the year. But observation, just normal observation over the millennia, uh, it appears that everybody is very relieved that the sun has stopped traveling if you're in the northern hemisphere, traveling south every day, and they really, in their minds, had no idea whether it was going to just keep going into a long permanent Day of Thrones long night, or what. Okay, we just didn't know. We were freaked out. But long about the 21st and the 22nd, what we now call the 21st, 22nd of December, it seemed to be slowing down and sort of hovering. Okay. And right around Christmas, just before Christmas, it appeared to actually stand still. And for about 3 days, it seemed like it sort of stood still. And then people who were keeping tracks with sticks in the ground and sun and things like that, long about the 25th of December, it really appeared like, yeah, and it's coming back. Okay. So obviously that's a really big thing in our racial and genetic memory. And of course, we all celebrate that time of year, if for no other purpose than just what do they call circadian rhythms of our body. But the sun is very, very important. Now, I call today's talk Blood and the Sun. And because it relates to the solar rites, or several of the sun rites of thelemic magic. I read yesterday from the car in our parking lot visit yesterday. I read from my book, The Magic of Aleister Crowley, and I just plugged the out of it yesterday because I'm pretty proud of the book. And if you haven't a copy of it, it would be a wonderful Christmas present to me if you just go buy a 6-pack of them from Weiser or Amazon or something. You don't have to read it, just buy it, okay? But anyway, I was thumbing through it and becoming re-familiar with the book, because I wrote it 30 years ago. So I'm going to just share a few words from the chapter 9, which is called the Solar Rites. I'm not going to read the whole thing because there's detailed rituals and things like that in it. So keeping in mind how important the sun is to us, let me share this. And I started off with a epigraph there. It says, There is a secret door that I shall make to establish thy way in all the quarters. These are the adorations as thou hast written. That's from the Book of the Law, chapter 3, which is the Wild and Crazy Horse Avenger chapter. Within a religious context, the magic of Thelema could accurately be described as solar worship. Let me digress for a sec. When I want to cut the conversation short, when I just want to cut to the chase and cut the conversation short, when somebody's sitting next to me in the airplane or someplace ask me about religion, and I said, well, I'm a Gnostic Catholic. Actually, I'm a clergy in the Gnostic Catholic Church. And they say, oh, Gnostic Catholic, what's that about? And the most truthful thing and the most concise thing that I can say to just sort of, unless I want to really get into the conversation, I'll say, the religion of the Gnostic Catholic Church, if you want to call it that, is solar worship. It worships. It's a form of solar worship, but with the caveat that the sun that we worship is ourselves. Then if they want to take that conversation any further, then I'll clarify it. But most of the time, that's enough for them to say, well, what are you going to be doing when you're in Cleveland, you know? But anyway, within a religious context, the magic of Thelema could accurately be described as solar worship. The only thing new and revolutionary about it is the worshipper's relationship to the sun. It doesn't take very long for the modern student of comparative religion to see the countless similarities and parallels inherent in the world's so-called great religions. We might even say, if we allow ourselves the emancipation of a truly open mind, that the religions of the past are really only aspects of one religion, whose universal object of worship is the sun, and whose ceremonies, observances, and holy days are based upon the recurring yearly passion play that is the solar calendar. Terrestrial life pantomimes the sun's self-creating qualities and the reproductive capabilities of each organism. Our ancestors drew a direct parallel between the sun and the phallus, and between sunlight, blood, and semen. This correlation assumes increasingly profound dimensions as we apply our greater understanding of astronomy, physics, and medicine to this great evolving religion. The simple truth, and I put that in quotes, truth, of the death of the sun was destroyed by the truth of the heliocentric system, which was destroyed by the truth that our solar system revolves around a central something, which may very well be a black and unscrutable negative dimension. Excuse me. Theoretically, all of this originated as a compact, pre-existent negative singularity which for some reason could not contain itself, and in all likelihood will someday withdraw everything back into nothingness. How's that for being concise? Meanwhile, we're discovering that everything we were, are, and shall be is encoded on a chemical chip called DNA, which impresses itself upon our cells and flows like an eternal river through the blood of infinite generations, whose most important function is to serve as an organic arc for this evolving superlife. All of the thelemic rituals express the formula of a new solar consciousness. But two in particular incorporate the sun itself as the central element of the ceremony: Liber Resh and the Mass of the Phoenix. Resh is a simple series of 4 adorations, very short, which are performed at dawn, noon, sunset, and midnight. They're formulated as classic Egyptian adorations, but customized to satisfy Crowley's idea of the new magical formulae. Resh serves as an excellent form of background concentration, which requires us, or obliges us, to acknowledge our magical relationship with the sun at least 4 times in our busy day. So face it, how many times a day do you actually think kind of seriously about the sun? Okay, we see it up there. We know when it's light and dawn and daytime, and we know when it seems to disappear at night. But actually think about it and take a minute to shift our consciousness. And when we shift our consciousness, we commune with the sun. As a matter of fact, we commune with anything we shift our consciousness to. So why not the sun, the giver of all of our life, the creator of the matter that we stand on, the creator of the food is sunlight made edible. How many times a day, especially, wouldn't it be nice if we could just guarantee that at least 4 freaking times a day we look at the sun or look toward the sun, orient ourselves to the sun, and say a couple little words of adoration. Now, we know that it's the earth that's spinning around, the sun that isn't coming up and being up at its zenith or going down, or we know that relatively speaking the sun is stationary. So when we turn toward the sun at dawn, we are making a straight line between our souls and the sun. And at noon, when we turn to the south, that straight line is still that very same straight line. And it's us that has moved around. But we have anchored ourselves to that straight line. And when the sun goes down, the sun didn't, relatively speaking, didn't go anywhere. We did. And we're still locked into that straight line. And at midnight, when we turn north, which is about the best we can do, okay, to keep that straight line going, it's us that's just doing that. Okay? But I digress. I am sorry. This is what Crowley says. The object of this practice is firstly to remind the aspirant at regular intervals of the great work. Secondly, to bring him into conscious personal relation with the center of our system. And thirdly, for advanced students, to make actual, magical contact with the spiritual energy of the sun, and thus to draw actual force from him. Or if you're Japanese, or lots of people, her, unquote. The Mass of the Phoenix, which is the other ritual, is the Eucharistic ceremony created to be celebrated at sunset in order to fortify the magician's awareness of the sun during its nighttime journey. Like the rituals of the star ruby and the star sapphire, it first appeared in print in the Book of Lies, where it was positioned as chapter 44. Now, Mass of the Phoenix, you actually cut yourself, or at least pinprick yourself to get enough blood to actually come out of you. And 44 is the Hebrew word, excuse my pronunciation, damun or something like that, which is just spelled Daleth Mem, 44. So it's Mass 44, Mass blood. Because there seems to be an element of self-mutilation in the Mass of the Phoenix, there continues to be considerable misunderstanding about the ritual, and outrageous statements by extremists on both ends of the magical spectrum have caused many serious students to avoid it altogether. And Crowley's sort of over-the-top description of things, just in general, could lead many people to misinterpret just how deeply those wounds must be. But I digress. Crowley wrote in chapter 20 of Magic and Theory and Practice that the Mass of the Phoenix should be performed daily, just like Resh. It should be performed daily at sunset by every magician, unquote. Now, did he really expect us to risk our health by slashing our chests open every evening? I confess that as an overzealous young fool, I celebrated the Mass of the Phoenix, just as I was learning it, actually, by using a surgeon's scalpel in place of the burin. That's the tool, it's just magical burin, which is like a gouging tool, to, quote, make the proper sign, unquote. To my amazement, the blade painlessly disappeared almost entirely into the flesh of my chest before I realized what was happening. The cut was extremely clean, and for a moment there was no bleeding. Then it came, quickly running in thick stream over the front of my body. Determined to complete the ceremony, I tried to, quote, staunch the blood with the cake of light, only to have it disintegrate in my fingers in a flood of warm blood. The sun was half obscured by the horizon, and its soft light, orange light, bathed my blood-soaked chest and fingers. I bolted for the bathroom as I nervously parroted the last lines of the ritual. With mirth I now go forth, and with thanksgiving to do my pleasure on the earth among the legions of the living. I was frightened, agitated, injured, embarrassed, and I did not feel very spiritual. Let the blood of my sacrifice wash you clean of any temptation to do such a stupid thing to yourself. It's obvious from the text that the magician is to actually draw blood in order to consecrate the cake of light before consuming it, but nowhere is it indicated that pain, scarring, or injury is a required element of the ceremony. It's a Eucharist, not a ritual of self-mutilation. Not that there aren't rituals of self-mutilation, but not this one. Okay, an excellent way to make a proper sign is use like a machinist scribe. That's like a sharp, tapered, pencil point type, tapered uh, stainless steel. Or it's easy to sterilize. If one's careful, it's possible to just lightly scratch the symbol, a circled cross, on the flesh. I mean, just scrape it, not even break the skin. This will remain visible for several hours. By applying just a little more pressure to a small area of the scratch, the tool will break the skin just enough for a tiny drop of blood to rise to the surface. This fulfills the literal interpretation of the ritual without harm to the magician and allows him or her to concentrate on the real purpose of the ceremony, namely a solar Eucharist. In other words, spiritually eating the sun, taking the sunlight into your body. Now, how do you do this? And what was Crowley's idea for this whole Mass of the Phoenix thing, besides freaking out people that are easily freak outable, or would-be magicians with no common sense? This is the idea, and this will sort of explain the title of today's talk: Sun, Blood, and the Sun. The ideal setting for the Mass of the Phoenix is outdoors or before a window open to accommodate the view of the setting sun. There's a room in your house, perhaps, that can do that. The ritual is so brief, the magician can begin as the sun first touches the horizon and have time to charge the blood on the chest with the last rays of the setting sun. This solar consecrated, in other words, you're standing before a window, ideally, with the sun starting to set, and the setting sun light is bathing your bared chest. And you make a tiny little scratch with just enough pressure to have just a tiniest bit of your own blood bathed, consecrated in that last rays of the sun. So in other words, it's the sun itself, it's the God of the sun itself infusing your living blood. That blood has a heartbeat. Put it under a microscope, you'll see it go boom, 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 boom. And that blood, your blood, the blood that was created by that sun, is then again recommuning with its source and being consecrated in the last rays. Okay, then this solar consecrated holy blood is then trapped in the cake of light, or the host, and then ceremonially consumed by the magician as a Eucharist. What does the priest say at a Roman Catholic Mass? The body of Christ. That body of Christ is you. When the Mass is over, the essence of the sun is safely sheltered until dawn in the body of the magician. So in other words, you're saying to the sun, I know you're coming back, okay? I know you're on all the time. And just to prove it, I'm going to just trap it and keep you all nice and cozy all night. And then in the morning, I'll see you again in the morning. But until then, you're in me. You are me. If performed regularly and over a period of time, the body of the magician will be renewed, cell by cell, by this spiritual solar nourishment. Okay, then of course I've got both of these, Resh and the Mass of the Phoenix rituals here, plus Crowley's commentary on it. Briefly, the Mass of the Phoenix, Mass 44. The magician, his or her breast bare, stands before the altar on which are his burn, bell, thurible, and 2 cakes of light, or hosts. In the sign of the Emperor, he reaches west across the altar and cries. So you're going west toward that setting sun. Hail, Ra, that goest in thy bark into the caverns of the dark. Give the sign of silence, and you take the bell, and you take the source of your fire in your hands. East of the altar, see me stand with light and music in mine hand. Then you strike 11 times on the bell. And you place the fire on the thurible. Now, that 353, that's 11. Okay, it's the union of 5 and 6. I strike the bell, I light the flame, I utter the mysterious name Abrahadabra. And Abrahadabra is that union of the 5 and the 6. Okay? Then he strikes 11 times again. Now I begin to pray. Thou child, holy thy name and undefiled. Thy reign is come. Thy will is done. Here is the bread. Here is the blood. Bring me through midnight to the sun. Save me from evil and from good. Transcending dualities. That thy one crown, together, of all the 10, tree of life, even now and here be mine. Amen. Isn't that? Now, he puts the first cake of light, remember there's 2, on the charcoal. I burn the incense cake. Proclaim these adorations of thy name. Okay, and it says he makes them as in Liber Legis, and strikes again 11 times on the bell. So the adorations, unity uttermost showed, I adore the might of thy breath, supreme and terrible God, who makest the gods and death to tremble before thee. I adore thee. Appear on the throne of Ra, open the ways of the Ku, lighten the ways of the Ka, the ways of the Kabs runs through to stir me or still me. Aum, let it kill me. The light is mine, its rays consume me. I've made a secret door into the house of Ra and tomb of Kephra and Ahathur. I am thy Theban Mentu, the prophet Ankaf Nakansu. By Besna mouth my breast I beat, by wise Tanich I weave my spell. Show thy star splendor, O Nuit. Bid me within thine house to dwell. O winged snake of light Hadit, abide with me, Rahur Kuit. Then you strike 11 times on the bell. Then You make, with the burin, you then make upon the breast the proper sign. Then you do your little scratch, you draw the little blood. Behold this bleeding breast of mine, gashed with the sacramental sign. Then he picks up the second cake. Now, the first cake is already burning as the incense. Puts the second cake to the blood. I staunch the blood, the wafer soaks it up, and the high priest invokes. Then he eats the second one. And you just don't pop it in your mouth and crunch it and get it over with. No, that's the communion. That's when your eyes should go back into the center of your forehead. That's, you want to consume that ecstatically, because think of what you're doing. This bread I eat, this oath I swear as I inflame myself with prayer. There is no grace, there is no guilt. This is the law. Do what thou wilt. Strikes 11 times on the bell. Now, you've done that 4 times, okay? 44 rings on the bell, 44 DM, blood. Abrahadabra. I entered in with woe, with mirth, I now go forth and with thanksgiving to do my pleasure on the earth among the legions of the living. And that's right off the stele of revealing. Then it says, he goeth forth. Okay, when this ritual first appeared in the Book of Lies, Crowley had a page of commentary on it, a paragraph. The phoenix hath a bell for sound, fire for sight, a knife for touch, 2 cakes, one for taste and the other for smell. He standeth before the altar of the universe at sunset, when earth life fades. He summons the universe and crowns it with magic light to replace the sun of natural light. He prays and gives homage to Rahur Kuit. To him he then sacrifices. And the only worthy sacrifice is the magician himself or herself. The first cake burnt illustrates the prophet drawn from the scheme of incarnation. The second, mixed with the life's blood and eaten, illustrates the use of the lower life to feed the higher life. He then takes the oath and becomes free, unconditioned, absolute, burning up in the flame of his prayer and born again, the phoenix. And again, that could be found right here in The Magic of Aleister Crowley and in a million other places. So that's my little talk about the blood and the sun today, as the sun is now actually the days theoretically. Who knows what it is? It's cloudy, but it is getting better. The sun is returning. The phoenix of the year is rising. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt. Shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will. Abrahadabra.